First, thank you very, very much for your presence today, and a really warm welcome to all of you at the next Charter. We are very grateful for the turnout today. We were quite overwhelmed with the number of RSVPs that we received, and we are quite honored by your presence. As you heard from Reza earlier, this is the first time we're doing this, a gathering of the whole legal community at such scale. And we're doing it this year in our bicentennial year. 200 years since the foundation of our rule of law and our legal system's foundation was laid. The Second Charter of Justice was introduced in the year 1826, and I think it'll be fair to say that we've come a very long way in those 200 years, molding, shaping, and contextualizing our legal system that we inherited many years ago to serve the needs of Singapore and Singaporeans. But today, we look ahead and think about the next charter. As a legal profession, we stand at perhaps one of the most consequential crossroads in our history. It's critical that we think about what the profession should look like, not next year or year after, but in 10, 20, 30 years' time, and what we should do to get ourselves there, and the challenges along the way that we will have to confront. When I first came into practice, this more than 30 years ago now, the half-life of a skill was more than 10 years. Today, it is around 4 years. And all of that is driven and will continue to be driven by rapid innovation and technological change. At that time, 30-odd years ago, a lawyer's tools would include a telex machine, fax machine, stacks of paper bundles, and those of you who can see on the screen, it also included a paginator. And if you know what a paginator is, you are quite aged. And if you have used a paginator in the past, like me, you're very aged. Technology for us in those days came in the form of a 286 computer. You remember that? 286 computer, I had to turn it on, and then I went downstairs to La Pasa to have a coffee, and I came back and it was still whirring. And it had a floppy disk. Emails had not yet been introduced. I know I sound really like an old coot now, but emails had not yet been introduced. And of course, several years later, we had the BlackBerry, and that was a game changer, because not only did we have emails, we could email someone not from our desk. And that was a real game changer. And that was life back in the mid to late 1990s as a lawyer. Today, I think we are in the middle of a serious technological revolution. And there is no doubt that the next 30 years will move much faster than the last 30 years. Everyone has a mobile phone. You heard Reza earlier. Mobile phones took over a decade to reach 1 million users. ChatGPT took 5 days. Technology, and in particular AI, therefore, cannot be ignored in the next phase of change. Not just as a tech tool, a tool that you call up for research, for organizing documents, to replace your paginator, for front-end or back-end legal work, but also tech and AI's impact on the way law firms will be run, the way in which we construct our business models, the way in which we attract talent or maybe see shifts in talent patterns, workplace cultures, work from home, flexible hours, and also legal education. And there is no doubt that AI will have a profound and significant impact on our legal profession. But at the same time, I believe that AI will not replace the human lawyer, at least not for the foreseeable future. But the human who adopts and uses AI better will replace the human who does not. And therefore, we have chosen today to focus on AI and technology and its impact on the legal profession. As you heard earlier, we will have an exciting panel of speakers from leading tech backgrounds. We chose them deliberately because they offer something different experiences, and they can share from different perspectives on the spectrum. And we've also invited at the back of the room partners from the legal tech industry to show off their latest products. They will do a show and tell hands-on demo if you like, and also be in a position to offer trials to all of you, should you want. I will come back to this point on AI and tech a little later, but before I do, let's first go back to some basics and ask ourselves, as we look at confronting disruption, what is our vision for the Singapore legal industry? I believe my vision, at least speaking for myself, is this: a first-class legal system powered by top-class legal profession, undergirded by the rule of law, trusted by the world. I hope to see a legal industry that remains relevant and attracts work to Singapore. And I saw relevant in the word cloud just now, so I'm using it, Reza. I also want to see a legal profession where the brightest minds want to practice in Singapore, and where the best legal talent has every chance to be nurtured, grow, and succeed right here in Singapore. I want to see legal professionals, whether you are a newly qualified young lawyer just starting out or with a PQE of 40, to see law not merely as a job, but as a calling, a career that may be hard work, but still inspiring and motivating, and where it still remains a privilege to be called a counsel in every sense of the word. I think we have done much to get to where we are today. We've done much together as a legal profession. And on that score, I'm confident that even as we look at the disruptions, we will be able to navigate them from a position of strength. By almost any measure, our legal system has ranked well. If you just look at the slide on the screen, whether you look at Gallup's Global Safety Report or Pew Research or World Justice Project, we rank highly in order and security, absence of corruption, regulatory enforcement, the civil justice system, as well as the criminal justice system. All of this, nurtured, built up carefully over many years, has allowed us in turn to build a trusted professional services hub in Singapore, with the legal industry being a key part of that hub. We remain highly connected to the world, as we must. We regularly work with the world's best institutions, many of which are located right here in Singapore: WIPO, INSOL, ICC, LCIA, PCA, ICSID, to name a few. And they are present and they choose Singapore because they see opportunities in this part of the world. They see Singapore's position as a hub for the region. And there's deep trust and confidence in our legal system, which we can never take for granted. We must therefore continue to develop our legal talent, and we are indeed proud to see many of our legal talent exported elsewhere, making a difference on the world stage. Singapore lawyers are leading firms in key common law jurisdictions: Hong Kong, London, New York. In WIPO, which you see on the screen here, we have Mr. Darren Tang, the first Singaporean to lead a major UN agency, and he's just been nominated successfully for a second term just last month. He and his team have concluded landmark multilateral treaties: the WIPO Treaty on IP, Genetic Resources and Associated Traditional Knowledge, or the Riyadh Design Law Treaty. These are the first treaties that WIPO has concluded in more than a decade. A WIPO that was led by a Singaporean. Our people lead UN negotiations. The Singapore Convention on Mediation is one example, with 56 signatories today and 20 contracting parties. Our ambassador, Rina Lee, is known around the world for her leading role in UNCLOS, leading to the High Seas Treaty, as well as BBNJ, and she is now being offered for election to the ICJ, also another first for Singapore. So our legal profession as a whole punches above its weight. And let me share a few more statistics with you. Today, we have a strong Singapore core of 6,400 Singapore lawyers in practice. And over the last 10 years, that represents an increase or a growth of 26%. Since we opened up our legal space in the year 2000, in the last 25 years, the number of foreign firms present in Singapore has more than doubled. And the number of foreign lawyers have more than quadrupled. We are amongst the most international hubs in Southeast Asia and in Asia, and amongst the best regarded as well. Many of our lawyers feature regularly in international rankings and accolades, and Legal 500, as one example, says that Singapore is one of the top jurisdictions with the most number of firms to watch. Taken together, the value of legal services generated by the legal and foreign firms has grown eightfold in this period of time. At the same time, the number of Singapore qualified in-house counsel has also more than doubled in the last 10 years. But this growth has not come at the expense of our local law firms. In-house counsel grew even as the number of Singapore qualified practitioners grew by 26%. And in-house counsel remains an integral part of the legal profession in Singapore. They support the growth of MNCs as well as other businesses in Singapore. They help companies navigate regulatory landscapes, allowing them to invest with confidence in Singapore, and in turn, driving the growth of MNCs in Singapore, which today has grown to more than 7,000 located in Singapore. And this in turn helps with job creation and a vibrant economy. At the same time, as a leading jurisdiction, we will continually update our laws, keeping abreast of development, meeting evolving demands. We also introduce new legislation in novel areas to deal with emerging areas such as online, cyber scams, developments and advents that we perhaps have not had to grapple with in the past. In the period of time since I've been at MinLaw, and I just went to do a count, we passed 56 bills, about 7 to 8 per year, or roughly one bill every 1 to 2 parliament sittings. And that's just the bills that MinLaw oversees. There are other bills which other ministries oversee. And so keeping our laws up to date, evolving, meeting demands of the market, making sure that we evolve to remain relevant is a key feature of the Singapore justice system. At the same time, access to justice remains a key value ethos for us to ensure the most vulnerable amongst us will always be assured of access to justice. Over the years, we've built up steadily CLAS, Legal Aid Bureau, PBSG, as well as most recently, the Public Defender's Office, or PDO. We have systematically institutionalized access to justice in Singapore. And earlier this week in Parliament, we announced enhancements to our legal aid framework, raising the PCHI, or per capita household income threshold, from $1,050 to $1,650 to allow more Singaporeans and PRs to be able to avail themselves of legal aid services. In the immediate horizon, we expect to see further changes. They sharpen our approach across many areas of the law, and you can see in this slide some of the bills that we expect to do in the coming years. We also expect to be building broader and stronger connections with overseas jurisdictions, because being open, being connected to the world is important for us. We engage continually in multilateral discussions and treaties with foreign counterparts. We intend also to continue to establish more agreements and MOUs to open up people-to-people connections, as you can see from this slide over here. And we will do so to strengthen partnerships, open up new markets for our law firms and lawyers, and broaden the horizon and experience options for lawyers. There's, however, much more to be done if we want to sustain our vision, if we want to keep at the forefront of the legal industry, keep relevant in other people's mind share. There is much more to be done. And we will continue to strengthen and to build on what we have achieved. And at the same time, we all know that we'll be doing it in an era of tremendous uncertainty amidst a series of very significant, deep disruptions to the legal industry. Let me just briefly outline a few. First, almost goes without saying, the state of global politics today, a world that's fragmenting, headlines every day or one form or another, intensifying fragmentation, sometimes happening by the week. As a consequence, the rule of law is under pressure. According to World Justice Project, 68% of countries decline in the rule of law score in the year 2025. And once there's a decline, it becomes harder to predict, harder to find a rules-based system by which to resolve disputes. Second, and more importantly for Singapore, amidst the geopolitical tension, competition is stiffening for Singapore. Other jurisdictions are organizing themselves and strengthening as well. Take arbitration, for example, which we have built up over many decades. Other jurisdictions are reforming their laws. Arbitral institutions are updating their rules and finding ways to expand globally as well. Asian cities like Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, Dubai are slowly climbing up the rankings. Many are also building their own integrated dispute resolution center, like Maxwell Chambers. In international restructuring and insolvency, Malaysia and the UAE have revamped their frameworks. China and India are also looking at making major moves. In IP, countries across Asia, the Middle East, and Latin America are strengthening their regimes. And India opened its legal market to foreign firms and lawyers on a reciprocal basis. All of these are some examples of the competition around us, ensuring that we do not ever rest on our laurels, and we always think forward, think about the next step, the next move that we need to make. Third challenge, the social fabric of the legal profession is also changing quickly. What do I mean by that? We will have to confront changes in workplace attitudes, the demand on talents. Where do the best, bright young students go? Do they come into the law? We also have to balance that against societal shifts, the way in which we see workplace adjustments, work-life balance, looking at working remotely, and the like. I thought I'll share some interesting findings with you on these issues. If you look up this slide, you'll see some of these numbers. 64% desire flexible working hours. 57% of employees would like flexible work arrangements. 49% of Singaporeans will consider quitting if their employers ask them to spend more time working in office. Amongst them, 69% were Gen Z, 44% were Gen X. Gen Z prefer to stay in a job for an average of less than 3 years, or 2.9 years. And all of them prioritize strong training and development opportunities, while Gen X looks for a financially healthy company. Looks like it's quite hard to start a business and a law firm. But I want to say that these are not in themselves negative findings. They are not. They reflect a zeitgeist of today. They reflect the value system of today. But what I think we need to think about from these findings is that they will have a consequential bearing on issues such as training, for example. Working from home or even flexible office hours will mean less face time with the senior practitioner in the office. Mentorship opportunities will decrease. And if hearings are mainly on Zoom, we might lose the opportunity to hone our skills simply by observing what goes on in the courtroom. I recall that when I was a very junior lawyer, I used to learn the most by just watching the judge, the witness, my senior partner, and the opposing counsel. Just watching them in court, watching the little tweaks, the twitches, the language they use, what document they choose to tender or submit. All of that can only be done in person in the setting of the courtroom. So I think we lose a little bit, and I think we will have to think about how we reevaluate training, law school curriculum, as well as continuing legal education. Finally, let me say a bit about AI. Yes, technology is changing our profession. AI is automating the routine. Some numbers, again, up to 44% of legal tasks can be automated by AI, and AI can do them faster, better. Lawyers who thrive in the future will be those who can use AI well, as I said earlier. So we will need lawyers who are not only legally strong, but also digitally fluent. And this means rethinking education and training. With AI now able to perform many tasks faster and in some cases, maybe many cases better, we will have to ask ourselves a harder question. What should a law degree actually be teaching? The answer cannot simply be how to use AI tools. Instead, I think we need to double down on what AI cannot replicate. AI cannot build trust with clients. It cannot exercise moral judgment. It can't advocate with wisdom. And it's not accountable, at least in a traditional sense. This means training lawyers to develop ethical reasoning, empathetic client engagement, judgment in situations of real ambiguity, and sometimes the moral courage to tell a client something that they do not want to hear. This is something that we will examine closely under the Future of Legal Profession Committee, led by the Honourable Chief Justice and myself, which will be done in collaboration with the broader legal profession. But as we push for excellence and growth and we look at navigating out of these disruptive forces, we must also recognize the pressures that have built up within the profession. We must build a profession where people can have long, meaningful careers with purpose and they see value in what they do and not burn out early. A sustainable legal sector isn't just about revenue or rankings. It's one where lawyers will see a future, where young lawyers see a future for themselves, where mid-level lawyers choose to stay, and senior lawyers choose to continue to mentor and inspire. But I'll be the first to admit, I think there's no quick fix to this. Simply easing the workload for younger lawyers without rethinking the work practice and the workflow and how we structure that balance will only shift the burden to senior lawyers, and that doesn't solve the problem. It's also not an answer to accept that exhaustion or burnout will be inevitable. We have to rethink how work is done. When people feel competent, they feel empowered, supported, they become more engaged, less overwhelmed, and more inspired to contribute. But at the same time, with all of the disruptions that I've outlined very briefly, I think disruption will also not shrink our opportunities. It will merely reshape the opportunities that we will have. The question was never whether work would change. The question is who will be positioned to capture what comes next. So today, as we discuss our vision for the legal industry, the next charter, and we talk about the disruptions, we thought that today we would put the focus squarely on AI, because we saw AI, or we see AI, as perhaps the biggest disruptive force to the legal profession in various respects. As I said, not just front-end or back-end use of AI in the firms, but its impact on a whole range of other consequential matters. I see AI as a big challenge, and I think most of the room probably do as well, but I also see it as a big opportunity. As Prime Minister said in his budget speech, this is now a national priority. We made it such because we believe that it will give us, in Singapore, a serious competitive advantage. And I think the same is true for the legal industry. So it remains also a priority for MinLaw. We will go all out to support firms in adopting AI. And we are prepared to invest alongside you as you make that change. And we will put meaningful support on the table to support the legal industry to make this change. But at the same time, you need to step forward and partner us. You need to think about the challenges that each of your firms will have. You will have a different challenge in a big, small, medium-sized firm, sole proprietor, in-house counsel. Will all have your different perspectives, and there'll be a spectrum. But we're prepared to work with all of you. Some will worry that simplification and digitalization of legal processes will reduce certain types of work. That concern is understandable, and the concern is always, will my roles no longer exist? Will I be marginalized? Will AI replace me? Yes, those concerns are there, but preserving inefficiencies just to preserve work is also not sustainable. Clients will inevitably demand better, and I think you will hear from the panel later on who've talked to many law firms, to many corporates about change management around AI. Clients will demand better, they will demand different. Other jurisdictions will also innovate, as I briefly mentioned. They will innovate, they will improve, they will enhance, and we can't afford to be left behind. We either move up the value chain or we will be overtaken. So we know the urgency, and we have introduced initiatives to help the legal industry along. Later today, at the end, you will see a short little video clip on our newest technology program called LIFT. LIFT will support your firms in change management and transformation. And we know from our past experience, and we know from doing our own research, that transforming in the space of AI is not just about putting money on the table. It's not just about a financial resourcing, although that's important because many smaller firms might well face the challenge of economies of scale. That's a significant threshold to cross. But it is not just about buying the latest product, which you can do very easily. It's about the entire change management, how you run the back end, how you run the front end, how you train your lawyers to use it, and how you educate lawyers, and how you interface with clients with the technology that you have. So LIFT helps you to analyze your needs, understand and decide which product best suits the firm and the firm profile that you run, and partner you with a vendor and a provider, and partner with you throughout the process of change management. Today, we'll also be launching a guide for using Gen AI in the legal sector safely and responsibly. We thought long and hard about rules around the use of Gen AI, and we've decided that we don't want to hard code the rules at this point in time. If we hard code it at this point in time, it will invariably stifle innovation. It might drive innovators away. And I don't think it is the right time because we are far from the end of the journey when it comes to the evolution of technology. So we've introduced a code that will set out the framework and the parameters for the use of Gen AI. So it is a dynamic, a very fast-moving area, and that's why we've invited these experts, to speak at the fireside chat later. They will be in a unique position, as I said, to give us an insider's viewpoint on tech and AI with some very hard truths about legal technology. I've asked them to excite you with what they say, but also to let you leave this room feeling a little bit anxious about AI. And I hope they find the right pitch later on. We've also asked some of the leading tech vendors and offerings to be present to showcase their technologies. And you can see some of our vendors here. We've arranged for them to be here to speak to you, to let you experience for yourself, and for them to walk you through what they offer. Each of them have a different value proposition, and we thought it would be useful to widen your perspective, understand how advanced technologies are being deployed across different industries, not just in the legal space, and how organizations are using these products to redefine and rethink the way they work. I hope that it sparks some imagination in all of you about what is possible. Let me now briefly conclude in a few minutes. I think in my few minutes here, what I hope you took away from my speech is that despite the disruptions that we face, that we will be facing head-on, we have achieved much as a legal profession. We have done well. And I think the best validation is perhaps in the fact that external parties use our services, they trust our legal system. We have arbitrations that take place here, cases that are resolved here, which have not much of a connection to Singapore, but they come into Singapore because they trust our system. But the future that we want to build in the next charter will demand more. Vision, adaptation, innovation, and I think perhaps most importantly, collaboration, which is why we are here in this room today. A collaboration of the different professionals that underscore and undergird the legal profession in Singapore. Whether you're in-house counsel, local lawyers, foreign lawyers, academics, students, in those in related industries to the law, all of you are part of the legal profession. And if we keep doing what we're doing, I have no doubt, if we left it alone and we didn't think about change, we didn't think about adopting AI, and we didn't think about dealing with the disruptions, I think we will be able to be all right for a while. We will still continue to grow steadily in the next few years. But we are not just after short-term incremental growth. We want to find that next quantum leap, the next breakthrough. Just as what previous generations achieved with Changi Airport, Newater, Jurong Island, Tuas Medical Park, some of our biggest infrastructures which have taken years, if not decades, to think about, to conceive, and to build, but they were visionary at the time that they were thought about. What is the equivalent of our legal sector? What is that next bound that will set us apart? So I think we need to think boldly. And Singapore is well positioned to seize these opportunities. In this endeavor, I close with an African proverb which I like a lot and which I hope resonates with all of you because I think it sends a signal about how we can collaborate. And it goes like this: if you want to go fast, you go alone. You want to go far, we go together. And I believe that if we go together, we will not just go far. We will lead, we will build something that lasts, we will build something that continues through the next charter for us. Today is the start of that journey, and I hope you see it as such. We welcome all of your thoughts, your ideas, your suggestions. And this is not a QR code for the pigeonhole. This is a QR code for you to leave your suggestions, your ideas, your fears, your anxieties, your suggestions, which we will take on board today and beyond today as we chart the next chapter of our legal profession. Thank you very much.